Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. Ray Voss felt the weight of the world, no, of two worlds, pressing against her chest as she stepped into the cavern's heart. Glowing crystal walls stretched upward like silent sentinels, their pulsing light casting fractured reflections on the rough stone floor. Behind her, Siren's alien silhouette flickered, tense and alert. Somewhere deep within, Varek's forces were mobilizing for the final ritual. "We don't have much time," Joran whispered, his pale eyes flicking to the east tunnel where distant footsteps echoed. The exiled healer pressed a small vial into Ray's hand. "This will suppress the sect's influence long enough for you to choose." Ray's gaze bounced between the vial's swirling liquid and Siren's unwavering stare. She remembered how he'd saved her in the dunes, how he'd risked everything to carry her from the wreckage. She could feel the bond between them, fragile but real. Yet beyond their personal connection loomed the heavy truth. If she complied, she would bear a child with alien genetics, a child meant to revive a dying civilization. If she refused, Siren's people might perish, and Varek's sect would still hunt her down. A low rumble trembled through the cavern as torch-bearing sect warriors emerged from the shadows. They wore bone masks and carried ritual blades. Their leader, Varek, strode at their head, robes trailing in the bioluminescent glow. His cold eyes locked onto Ray. "Ready at last," he hissed. Ray swallowed, her throat dry. "I won't be sacrificed." Varek grinned. "You were never choice, only duty." In that instant, Siren stepped forward, energy crackling along his arms. "Ray is free," he declared, voice firm. "I stand with her." A roar of disbelief rose from Varek's troops. The exiled healer Joran lifted his staff, unleashing a wave of soothing light that tamed the sect's youngest initiates. Chaos erupted. Ray backed toward the crystal nexus, a massive glowing prism at the cavern's center. Legend said it could amplify any life force, alien or human. If Siren could channel its power, they might break Varek's grip. But doing so meant drawing Ray into its heart, forcing her to make her choice under its overwhelming presence. The sect closed in. Ray's heart pounded in her ears. She felt a shift, a pull inside her belly, something growing, not yet life, but an undeniable presence of possibility. Siren extended his hand. "Trust me." Ray looked at Joran's hopeful face, then at Siren's steady gaze. Her mind flashed to memories of Earth, clear blue skies, her family's laughter, a life of freedom. Then to Volume 9, the shimmering crystals, the desperate faces of Siren's kin, the chance to bring hope to an entire world. "I choose life," she whispered. At her words, a beam of crystal light shot from the nexus, bathing her in luminous warmth. Siren began an incantation in his ancient tongue, weaving protective wards around Ray. Varek lunged, blade drawn, but Joran intercepted him, staff blazing with healing light. They clashed in a whirlwind of magic and steel. Ray felt the Nexus's energy flow into her, filling her with strength and clarity. She stepped forward, raising the vial Joran had given her. With a firm breath, she shattered it on a nearby crystal wall. A soft hiss of vapor rolled outward, dampening the sect's aggression, dulling their senses. One by one, their blades clattered to the floor as consciousness reclaimed their minds. Varek, enraged, charged through the haze toward Ray. Siren leapt, intercepting him. Their bodies collided in a blur, alien strength against fanatic fury. Ray felt compelled to help. She reached for a shard of crystal at her feet, heavier than it looked. As Varek stumbled past her, she swung, striking the gagged space between his shoulder blades. He collapsed with a harsh cry. Silence fell. The cavern's glow dimmed, then shimmered in gentle waves. Ray sank to her knees, breath ragged. Siren knelt beside her, blood staining his pale forearms. His eyes shone with relief and sorrow. "You saved me," he said, voice low. Ray pressed her hand to her belly, feeling the first faint flutter of their child. "We saved each other." Joran moved among the incapacitated sect members, binding them with vines grown from enchanted seeds. "They won't remember this place for years," he murmured. "Their zeal has been broken." Ray rose to her feet, leaning on Siren's steady frame. Together they approached the crystal nexus. Siren placed his hand on the prism's surface, and Ray laid hers atop his. The chamber responded, sending waves of healing light through the cavern and into every hidden chamber beneath Volume 9. Outside, alien settlements long thought lost stirred with renewed vitality. Water flowed in dry riverbeds, seeds sprouted in dusty soil. Distant hums of mechanical life erupted from silent factories. The world was waking. Ray closed her eyes, tears mixing with crystal dew on her cheeks. She had become an interstellar bridge between two worlds. Her body would carry a child of both species, a living promise of unity. Siren whispered an ancient blessing, and Ray felt peace settle over her like a gentle breeze. The choice she'd made was irreversible, but as the first stars of Volume 9's night sky blinked to life above them, she knew she would never regret the path she had chosen. Hand in hand, Ray Voss and Siren stepped into the glowing corridor, ready to rebuild a future born from sacrifice, love, and the shared dream of two worlds reborn. Ray Voss crouched beneath the fractured archway of the crystal caverns, her fingertips grazing the iridescent walls that pulsed with an otherworldly glow. Shadows danced across the rough stone floor as silent currents of cold air whispered through fissures overhead. Behind her, Siren moved with fluid grace, his elongated silhouette bending low to study the cavern's geometry. Every step they took set off faint reverberations, as though the very crystals were alive and watching. The remains of the ancient outpost loomed behind them, its broken columns swallowed by time and nature. Somewhere beyond the hush, tiny plumes of dust and light beckoned them deeper into Volume 9's hidden heart. Siren's low hum filled the silence, a sound half prayer, half survey. Ray listened, heart pounding against the tanned leather of her jacket. She felt the weight of her decision settle heavy in her chest. Was she an unwitting bride to an alien ritual? The thought flickered like a wisp of smoke. Yet each memory of Siren's steady courage, how he had risked his honor to save her, held her to this path. She followed him into a tunnel veined with crystalline growths, their facets refracting every stray light into shards of color that stained their shadows. The passage narrowed until they were forced to walk single file. Ray's gloved hand trailed along the wall, brushing against jagged edges that glowed like starlight. The air here tasted faintly metallic, tinged with a sweetness she couldn't name. Droplets of condensation clung to the crystals, and where they fell, tiny spores stirred beneath centuries of dust. Ray paused, bending to inspect the luminescent fungi growing between two crystal clusters. "What are these?" she whispered, breath flecked with awe. Siren glanced back, eyes reflecting prismatic hints of blue and violet. "They are the lifeblood of Volume 9, he murmured, voice soft as the hush. "Our ancestors called them heart seeds." A sudden skittering sound echoed ahead. Ray and Siren stiffened, weapons at the ready. But instead of sect warriors, a figure stumbled into view, bent and weary, clad in tattered robes that shimmered faintly beneath the crystal's glow. A gnarled staff in one hand crackled with dim phosphorescent energy. The stranger collapsed against a stalagmite, eyes half-lidded. Siren rushed forward, catching the falling body before it hit stone. "Stand back," he hissed. Ray did as asked, heart thrumming as she watched Siren lift the stranger to safety. The robed alien stirred, revealing pale skin etched with faded runes. His eyes opened, revealing swirling flecks of silver and violet. "Joran," Siren addressed him, voice tinged with relief. "You shouldn't be here." Joran's thin lips curved into a weary smile. "I asked to be found," he rasped. "The sect knows this place, they will come." Ray stepped closer, curiosity mixing with caution. "What sect?" she asked, voice low. Joran's gaze flicked between Ray and Siren, pain and resignation dancing in his eyes. "The children of Varek," he whispered. "They worship the crystals and demand renewal through blood and offspring." Joran's words settled like a stone in Ray's gut. She glanced at Siren, whose posture stiffened. "They are the ones who want to force me into carrying a hybrid child," she said softly. Joran's eyes darkened. "Yes, your child would carry the crystal seed within, reviving our world, but the ritual they plan is brutal. It consumes the mother's life to feed the nexus." The weight of the revelation pressed down on Ray. Her palms grew slick with sweat. "Then there is no hope?" she asked, voice trembling. Joran shook his head. "There is hope, but it lies beyond the sect's dogma. We've hidden the true path to renewal." Siren knelt beside Joran, studying the frail figure. "You trust me?" Joran's gaze bore into Siren's. "I trust you more than those fanatics," he said. "Siren, you must take Ray to the Crystal Grove. There I can perform a true rite, one that heals instead of destroys." Ray watched Siren's expression, torn between duty and desperation. "The Crystal Grove," she repeated. "Isn't that forbidden?" Joran nodded. "It was sealed long ago. Only the pure of heart may pass through its wards." Ray swallowed. "Then we risk everything." They pressed on, deeper into the labyrinth. The cavern walls opened into a vast chamber where colossal crystal spires jutted from the ground like sleeping titans. Faint hums pulsed in synchrony, weaving a tapestry of sound that resonated in Ray's bones. Water dripped from stalactites overhead, gathering in shallow pools that mirrored the spectral hues. Ray knelt at the edge of one pool, staring at the distorted reflection of her frightened face. Siren approached, offering a damp cloth. You will guide me." She asked. He nodded, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Together. Joran rose, using his staff to trace symbols in the air. Trails of energy snaked along the crystal floor. "These symbols once bound the grove to our ancestors' compassion," he explained. "Now they are broken. I can restore them, but I need the life force of one willing to bear hope." Ray's heart raced. She realized that the ritual Joran spoke of might spare her life but demanded her unfaltering commitment. She took a steadying breath, closing her eyes. "I'm willing," she whispered. As Joran chanted in the ancient tongue, the crystals responded. Light spilled forth, bathing Ray and Siren in a gentle glow. Hope fluttered in Ray's chest, mingling with fear. She felt connected to the planet as though every vein of crystal pulsed with her heartbeat. Siren knelt beside her, returning her gaze with warmth. "You are incredible," he murmured. Ray placed her hand over her heart. "I just want to save your people and find a way home." Siren's smile was sad. "We will find both." The chanting grew louder until the chamber trembled. Shards of crystal lifted from the ground, dancing around Ray in a crown of light. Joran's voice rose above the hum. "Focus on the bond," he urged. Ray and Siren reached for each other's hands. In the nexus of their fingers, the crystals converged, weaving a bridge between their two worlds. Ray felt a surge of warmth, an affirmation that life could bloom anew without sacrifice of the soul. But in the distance, a crashing echo sounded. Sect warriors had breached the outer wards. Joran's face hardened. "Varek's forces are near. I cannot hold them for long." Ray's heart pounded. "Then we move." Siren lifted her in a swift motion, the crystals parting like curtains. "Follow me," he called, vaulting onto a raised platform. Ray clung to him as he guided them through a hidden passage, its entrance concealed behind a waterfall of quartz dust. The passage narrowed, funneling them toward safety. Ray's mind whirled with images of her life on Earth. The buzz of cities, starry skies, her solitary cabin overlooking endless woods. But beneath those memories, a new vision emerged. Siren's people rebuilding among the crystal spires, Ray cradling a child of two worlds. The thought brought tears to her eyes. She would not falter. As they emerged into a smaller cavern, Joran greeted them with a faint smile. In his other hand, he held a crystalline orb, its surface alive with swirling mists. "The heart of the grove," he said. "Carry this to the inner sanctum. Here it will grow and heal the planet's core." Ray reached out, gently lifting the orb. Warmth pulsed through her fingers. She looked at Siren, who nodded with pride. With dawn's light filtering through cracks above, Ray peered at the nascent seed, its glow like a heartbeat in the dark. Siren knelt beside her, voice hushed as he described the next steps, transporting the seed to the ancient waterfall beyond the southern ridge, where it would absorb the planet's first purified rain in centuries. Ray nodded, determination shining in her eyes. Together, they would guard this fragile life against any threat, sect remnants or galactic scavengers who might seek to exploit Volume 9's riches. As they prepared to depart the caverns, Joran approached with his staff, now dim yet steady in his grasp. "I will return to the Enclave," he said, voice firm with renewed hope. "I will teach our people the true right of renewal." Ray squeezed his hand, feeling the bond of unexpected kinship. "Thank you," she whispered. Outside, the crystal spires beckoned to the sky, promising new beginnings for Volume 9 and for her own journey ahead. Their alliance had catalyzed a revolution, one seed of unity that would bloom across two worlds. Ray awakened to the distant rumble of stone grinding against stone. Her head ached from yesterday's ordeal, but she pushed herself upright, squinting through the torchlit darkness of Joran's hidden sanctum. Siren lay a few paces away, arms curled around himself like a fallen statue, his breathing shallow. The crystalline orb Joran had entrusted her lay cradled in her lap, faintly pulsing with silvery light. Outside, the wind sighed through fractured columns, carrying whispers of an approaching storm, and of sect warriors hunting them still. She rose on unsteady legs, slipping her hand into the satchel at her side. Inside, she found the fragment of vellum Joran had pressed into her palm before they fled the caverns. The crude map sketched therein led to an ancient ruin half buried by drifting sands and thorn scrub. Joran insisted its arches would shelter them. Its wards would conceal the orb's power long enough to reach the southern waterfall. Ray folded the map carefully, steeling herself to face the day's trials. Joran stirred at her movement, opening one pale eye. "They will come," he rasped, voice weathered but resolute. "Varek's emissaries will not rest until they retrieve you." Ray knelt, brushing a damp lock of hair from his forehead. "We'll hold them off," she whispered. Joran met her gaze, the runes on his skin glowing faintly in the torchlight. "Perhaps, but there is a deeper betrayal at hand." Ray's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Joran closed his eyes. "Siren's kin, some among them serve Varek. They would trade you for power, or worse, claim the orb's secrets for themselves." Siren blinked awake, every muscle tensing at Joran's words. Ray's heart lurched. "No," Siren said, voice cracked. "You're mistaken." Joran opened his other eye. "I am not. The sect has infiltrated even the Council of Guardians." He pointed to the map. "The ruins wards will shield you from scrying, but only if you remain unseen. I will slow our pursuers. Go now before the spider's web catches us all." Ray glanced at Siren. Conflict flickered across his pale features. Loyalty to his blood, loyalty to her, duty to a dying world. At last he nodded, drawing his pulse rifle. "We move." Together with Joran's last instructions ringing in their ears, Ray and Siren slipped into the wind-bitten dawn. The ruin emerged from the golden sands like a half-buried leviathan. Crumbling pillars arced toward a storm-dark sky, and broken statues of ancient guardians lay scattered across the parched ground. Ray's boots crunched on sun-bleached bones of long-dead beasts. She clutched the orb, its silver halo illuminating the worn inscriptions on the pillars. Siren surveyed their surroundings, amber eyes scanning every shadow. "We must seal the southern gate," he said, voice low. "Joran said the wards are strongest there." Ray nodded, recalling Joran's words, "Draw 3 symbols in the dust and speak the vow of unity." With a few sweeps of her finger, she traced the first glyph, a looping spiral, the second, a branching root, the third, a woven circle. As her fingertip completed the vow, a faint hum thrummed through the air, and the cracked gate slid ajar, revealing a hidden courtyard. The courtyard glowed with a gentle green light. Moss had claimed the broken flagstones, and delicate vines curled around shattered reliefs. At its center stood a basin carved from obsidian, empty but for a shallow pool of rainwater. Ray set the orb beside the basin, its glow intensified, casting dancing ripples across the courtyard walls. "It's activating," Ray murmured. "Soon the orb will draw from the sky's first purified drops." The orb's pulsing slowed as though content in its new cradle. Siren exhaled, relief softening his tense jaw. "We only need to wait for the storm's passing." Ray sank to one knee, cradling the orb's light. "I've never felt so connected to something." Siren sat beside her. "You have given our people hope," he said quietly. Ray offered him a thin smile, though her stomach knotted with unease. Betrayal lingered in her mind like a poison. Could she trust any of Siren's kin now? Suddenly the hush shattered. The distant clash of blades and urgent shouts echoed through the ruins' corridors. Sect warriors flooded the broken archways, bone masks glinting under the stormy sky. Their leader, a tall figure draped in dark robes, strode at their head. Ray's blood ran cold. It was Marith, Siren's former lieutenant and one of Joran's betrayed wards. "Siren," Marith called, voice echoing coldly. "You're a fool to stand with her." He raised a blade carved from black crystal, its edge humming with lethal energy. Behind him, dozens of sect members formed ranks, weapons at the ready. Ray clutched the orb to her chest as a sickening thought took root. Siren's own people had turned on him. Siren rose, pulse rifle at the ready. "Marith, don't do this," he pleaded. Marith laughed, a hollow sound that shook Ray's bones. "We follow the true path," he spat. "The powerless hides behind sentiment while the rest of us embrace the crystal's destiny." He gestured behind him. "Give us the human mother, let the ritual begin." Ra'i's heart pounded. She leveled her own rifle, though her hands shook. "You won't have her," Siren said, stepping between Ray and Marith. "She is not sacrifice, she is savior." Marith's eyes narrowed. "The council will hear of this," he hissed. "The sect demands order." With a shout, he launched himself at Siren, blade whistling through the damp air. The courtyard erupted into violence. Sect warriors swarmed the flagstones, light and shadow clashing as energy blasts and crystal shards flew. Ray ducked behind a fallen pillar, orb still cradled in her arms. She watched Siren deflect Marith's blade with a spark of violet energy at his forearm. Siren's adversary snarled, pressing his attack with ruthless precision. Ray's breath caught. Marith had trained Siren as a guardian once. He knew all of Siren's strengths and weaknesses. A ball of forged energy streaked toward them. Ray threw herself forward, the blast missing her by inches, tearing away a chunk of stone. Dust choked the courtyard, and when it cleared, Joran's gaunt form appeared at the gate, staff ablaze with healing light. He lifted the staff in one arc, and a wave of menthol-white energy swept over the warriors, searing their bone masks and scattering them backward. "Now," Joran shouted. "Through the spiral arch!" He hurled a final burst of power at Marith, forcing him back with a howl. Ray and Siren sprinted toward the archway carved with spirals. Each pulse rifle blast carved icy tunnels through the air as sect survivors pursued them. Ray's boots slipped on wet moss. She stumbled, orb nearly slipping from her grasp. Siren caught her elbow, steadying her against the stone. "Keep moving," he urged. They dashed through the arch into a narrow corridor, torches guttering as wind roared in. Joran followed, warding off pursuers with lightning arcs of his staff. Rey's lungs burned as she navigated the twisting passage, the walls narrowing until only a single person could squeeze through. She motioned for Siren to go first. He hesitated, eyes flicking to the orb that lay safe on a pedestal in the courtyard. "We cannot leave it," he said, voice rough. "Without it, the grove dies." Rey hardened her resolve. "We cannot both die for it." He nodded, swallowing. "Go." She slipped through the gap. He grabbed her arm, pulling her close. "I love you," he whispered, lips brushing her ear. Rey's throat tightened. "I love you too." Then he slipped back, standing guard with Joran as she pressed on. The corridor opened into starlit ruins. Sand had scooped into hollows like moonscapes. Rey raced toward a crumbling tower that marked the exit to the southern ridge. Behind her, she heard Mareth's rage rising, a guttural taunt that promised no mercy. She rounded the tower's base and spotted a narrow crevice between its stones, just large enough to crawl through. She clambered inside, squeezing over sharp edges as the walls closed above her head. Outside, heated voices raged. She slowed her breath, letting the echoes drift away until silence reigned. At last, the crevice opened into a hidden alcove. She lay on her side, clutching the orb as tears pricked her eyes. Betrayal had come from every side. Varek's sect, Siren's own kin, the cruel twist of fate that had stranded her here. And yet she still held hope. Hope born from Siren's courage, from Joran's sacrifice, from the life that pulsed within the orb and within her own womb. She pressed her hand to her belly, feeling the faint tremor of life. No betrayal could sever this bond. Rey drew a ragged breath and rose, determination blazing in her chest. The final journey to the waterfall awaited, and with it the promise of renewal for Volume 9 and for herself. Shadows may have betrayed her, but she carried the light of two worlds. Slipping through the hidden alcove, she set her face toward tomorrow's dawn, ready to defy every specter of the past and forge her own destiny. Rey Voss stepped into the pale light of dawn, each breath a tremor of cold air and lingering fear. The narrow alcove's stone walls gave way to open sky above the southern ridge, where the first rays of Volume 9's twin suns painted the horizon in hues of rose and gold. She pressed a hand to her side, muscles aching from the night's flight, and steadied herself against a jagged outcrop. The crystalline orb lay safe in her satchel, its silvery glow dim against the sunrise, yet she could feel its pulse aligning with her own heartbeat. Below her, the canyon floor trembled with the promise of water. The ancient waterfall waited, and with it, the world's salvation. Below the ridge, a narrow path wound through scrub and fractured stone. Rey began her descent, each step measured, roots and loose gravel threatening to betray her footing. The wind carried distant echoes of conflict, shouts and the clash of crystal blades, reminding her that Varek's sect still pursued them. But for now, silence reigned, broken only by the soft susurration of the wind through venom leaf bushes, their poisonous petals closed against the dew. Rey's boots sank into dusty soil, and she winced as a shard of ice-cold water ran down her chest under her jacket. This trial was far from over, yet every drop of sweat and grit under her nails fueled her resolve. After what felt like hours of slipping between boulders and clambering over petrified roots, Rey caught sight of the waterfall's roar. It thundered down a sheer cliff face, mist rising in ghostly tendrils that caught the dawn's light like fractured prisms. At its base, a shallow pool spread wide, ringed by fertile silt and seedlings that dared to sprout despite centuries of drought. Rey knelt at the pool's edge, drawing a hand through the cool water. The orb, glowing brighter now, seemed drawn to this nexus of life. She set it on a nearby stone pedestal, an ancient altar carved with alien glyphs that Joran had mapped for her, and stepped back, heart pounding as she surveyed the scene. The altar's surface was smooth obsidian, etched with spirals and loops that pulsed faintly when the orb was placed upon it. Rey ran a fingertip over the symbols, recalling the vow Joran had taught her. "In unity we rise, in compassion we heal." She closed her eyes and whispered the words in the alien tongue, voice trembling at first, then steadying as the glyphs glowed in response. The orb, light intensified, casting dancing reflections on the cavernous walls around the pool. Water ripples radiated outward, as though the very essence of Volume 9 recognized its chance for rebirth. A sudden cry tore through the air, a warrior's battle horn, distant but unmistakable. Sect warriors poured over the cliff's edge, bone-masked and armed with crystal blades that crackled with lethal energy. At their head strode Mareth, his once steadfast lieutenant's eyes burning with fanatic zeal. Rey dropped into a defensive stance, heart hammering. Mareth's voice echoed across the courtyard. "Give us the human mother," he demanded, raising his blade. "We will complete the rite as Varek intended." Rey's fingers closed around the orb's smooth surface, as if she could shield it with her own flesh. "You won't have her," she called, voice clear despite the fear knotting her stomach. "This ends today." Behind her, the seedlings by the pool began to glow with verdant light, responding to the vow's power. Rey felt warmth rise from the orb through her palm. Life surged in the air, ripe with possibility. Just as Marith barked an order to attack, a tremor ran through the ground. Boulders shifted at the trail's entrance, and Joran appeared, leaning on a staff crackling with white energy. At his side, a half-dozen guardians from the hidden enclave emerged, warriors and healers united under his banner. Their armor bore the seal of the true rite, and their faces glowed with purpose. They raised their weapons and chanted the ancient blessing, a chorus of alien vowels that wove a protective barrier around the altar. "Siren!" Rey cried, scanning the ridge. Beneath an overhang, Siren crouched, pulse rifle trained on the sect's flank. His pale skin was streaked with dust and fresh wounds, but his amber eyes burned with fierce determination. He motioned to his allies, and together they advanced along the ridge's broken ledges, striking the sect's attackers in swift, coordinated bursts. Crystals shattered and warriors fell, their fanatic rage faltering before the enclave's disciplined ranks. Marith snarled and charged toward Rey, blade raised high. She stood her ground, heart pounding in her throat as he lunged. At the last moment, she pivoted, holding the orb aloft like a shield. Marith's blade struck it with a thunderous crack, sending shards of silvery light scattering across the pool. Rey stumbled but remained upright, the orb intact. The water around it surged, foaming at the edges as if awakening from a deep slumber. With a roar, Marith pressed his attack again. Rey felt fear flare like wildfire, but she remembered Joran's words. "The true path spares the bearer." Instead of striking back, she cried out the vow, voice steady and unwavering. The orb responded, radiating a wave of healing energy that washed over Marith's blade, rendering it inert. The warrior staggered, eyes wide with disbelief, as the barrier of light encased him, binding his arms to his sides. Behind him, the pool's water began to rise, swirling around the orb's pedestal. Siren and Joran moved to Rey's side. Siren placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip gentle but firm. "You did it," he breathed. Joran nodded, staff still glowing. "The ritual completes now, but its power asks a final sacrifice. Your choice remains." Rey looked down at the orb, now half submerged in the rising water. Tendrils of light wove through the pool, lifting droplets into the air like luminescent fireflies. She felt a pull at her core, an invitation to merge her own life force with the planet, to revive Volume 9 at the cost of her existence. Memories of Earth flooded her mind. Her family's faces, the hum of traffic, the first time she'd flown her shuttle alone. Yet beneath those memories lay her reluctant bond with Siren, the alien guardian who had trusted her with his people's fate. And deeper still, the new life growing within her, a child neither wholly human nor wholly alien. The water swirled around her ankles, cool and insistent. Joran's voice called above the hum. "Rey Voss, the orb demands the mother's life to ignite the nexus. Only then will Volume 9 awaken in fullness." Rey's breath hitched. She closed her eyes, hand drifting to her belly, feeling the gentle flutter that promised a tomorrow neither race had known. Her heart split between duty and desire, between sacrifice and survival. A crack echoed as Varek himself emerged from the shadows, robes dark as obsidian, eyes glittering with derision. "So you choose to live?" he mocked, voice like grinding metal. "Your child will wither without the mother's light." He raised his staff, aiming to shatter the orb once more. Rey looked at Siren, his amber gaze burned with defiance. He stepped forward, raising his rifle, not to kill, but to protect. "No," Rey said, voice clear as crystal. She raised her free hand toward the orb, whispering a vow of unity stronger than any sacrifice. The orb pulsed, sending a beam of pure light up the cliff face, splitting the sky. Water cascaded faster, surging over the pedestal in a column of shining life. Rey felt warmth flood her veins, not pain. The orb's energy entwined with her unborn child, forging a new covenant between worlds. Varek shrieked in fury as the water pillar flared, blasting him backward into the reeds. The seedlings sprouted wildly, sending vines along the ruins' walls and sealing cracks in the altar. The pool's water overflowed into thirsty channels carved by ancient hands, racing down the canyon to bring fresh rain to parched plains. Rey staggered but remained standing, supported by Siren's strong arm. Around them, the sect members lay stunned or fleeing, their zeal broken by the true rite's mercy. Joran lowered his staff, its glow dimming to a gentle pulse. He turned to Rey, eyes shining. "You have given Volume 9 a future without death. Your choice to live has reborn this world." Ray pressed a hand to her belly, where she could now feel the orbs light entwined with her child's heartbeat. She looked at Siren, tears mingling with crystal spray on her cheeks. "We did it," she whispered. "Together." Days later, in the cleared courtyard beside the waterfall, Ray stood among a gathering of survivors. Humans sent to search for her, alien families drawn to the restored water. Joran taught them the true vows, guiding hands that carved fresh symbols into a new altar. Siren knelt beside Ray as she placed handfuls of crystal seed into every channel, each sprout glowing with promise. Above them, Solum 9's sky shone without dust, twin suns warming revived rivers. Varek and Merith were exiled, stripped of their hold on the Council of Guardians. In their place rose a new assembly, half human, half alien, bound by the vow Ray had spoken. Treaties were signed at sunrise, and ships began to ferry aid across the system. Ray chose to remain on Solum 9, building a home beside the waterfall and teaching her child the language of both worlds. And so dawn broke on Solum 9 anew, a planet redeemed not by sacrifice of one, but by the courage to choose life. Ray Voss, alien mother and human pioneer, watched her child's first cry echo through the canyon, a promise that the secrets of alien worlds could be woven with hope, and that love, in the end, was the truest catalyst of all.